So we're continuing our two-part series today called This I Believe. And it's about the beliefs that you and I have which shape our lives. You know, May Rowland, who was the director of Silent Unity for 55 years, she would begin her affirmations, her prayer statements by saying, "This I believe." It's a powerful statement. Would you say that with me? This I believe. Yeah. So this I believe God is good. This I believe God is love. This I believe we live in a world of infinite possibility. What are your beliefs? What are your beliefs? And that's what we've been exploring. I've had the opportunity to begin sharing with you some of the beliefs that have been most important for me in my spiritual journey and in my walk in life. So as we think about beliefs, what I want to tell you is the first step is getting clear about them, getting really clear about what your beliefs are and what they mean. And that reminds me of this little community in Texas. It was a little neighborhood, actually, just a few houses right around a cul-de-sac. And as it happened, everybody that lived around this particular cul-de-sac were all Catholic. And they were devoted Catholics. And so that meant that every Friday, they only ate fish. They would not eat any meat. They carried that fasting tradition with them, and they were really rigid about that. And then somebody new moved on the cul-de-sac. Bubba moved on the cul-de-sac. And every Friday, Bubba would pull out his barbecue grill, take off the cover. He put a great big old T-bone steak right in the middle of that grill. And all the other neighbors would smell that grilling of the steak, and their stomachs would start to growl. And finally they decided, something had to be done about Bubba. So they went to their priest. And they explained the situation to him, and the priest said, "It's not a problem, I got it handled." He went, and he sat down and had a conversation with Bubba, and he said, "Bubba, maybe it's time you become a Catholic." And sure enough, Bubba was kind of pleased to be invited into the church, and so he took the classes and went through the conversion process, and there on a Sunday in front of everybody, the priest sprinkled some holy water on Bubba and said, "Bubba, you were born a Baptist, and you were raised a Baptist, but now you are a Catholic." And Bubba was so proud, he was a Catholic now. So everybody figured it was all handled, right? They were looking forward to this first Friday when there were not going to be any grilling of T-bone steaks. But do you know, Friday came around, and sure enough, the neighbors smelled the steak on the grill again. They called the priest, who marched right over, because he knew he had taught Bubba very clearly what the rules were, what the beliefs were about the Catholic tradition. And so he's about to go in and give Bubba some redirection when he sees Bubba gently standing there at the grill. Got a little holy water in his hand. He's looking at the steak. He takes some holy water and he says, "You was born a cow? You was raised a cow, and now you are a fish." And so it is that our beliefs make a difference. Our beliefs make a difference, and we're going to talk about some of those today. This I believe. This I believe that our thoughts are powerful. This I believe that your thoughts are creating your very life right now. And here's the thing about a thought. It's only a thought, and a thought can be changed. I want to tell you a story. Some of you may have been at some of the World Day of Prayer activities at Unity Village this week. Any of you there Thursday morning for the Silent Unity prayer service? A couple of you were there Thursday morning. So if so, you got to hear the great spiritual teacher, Chaz Wesley, share his story. Chaz is a spiritual teacher and coach. He is a grief counselor and also helps to coach people and their families through end-of-life experiences. But back in 2000, he was living a different life. He was living the good life in every way that material success could bring. He had all the money he could want, a beautiful home, a husband and partner who loved him very much, and then he got the diagnosis. He had cancer. His partner said, "I didn't sign up for this. I can't walk with you on this journey." So his partner left. Chaz's life began to crumble, and within 2 weeks of receiving a diagnosis, his mother, surprisingly, died. His mother, who was his best friend, made her transition. As he watched his life crumble before his very eyes, then he got the final blow. He received a diagnosis not just of cancer, but of multiple sclerosis. And as he tells the story, he tells how he went from this life that outwardly looked to be so perfect and wonderful, how it crumbled, and he fell into depression and into despair. And day after day, he just kept living with the mantra, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, as he went through treatments and as his energy began to fail him and depression overcame him. And then one day, he had what he called a 7-second minute. A 7-second minute. Now, you and I, we've had 7-second minutes. A 7-second minute is when you all of a sudden get it. You get some awakening, some insight, and it's like it comes from out of the blue, and just boom, you see life differently. And in that 7-second minute that Chaz had, he realized that he'd been focusing all his attention on the part of his body that was not healthy. All of his attention focused there, instead of realizing that most of the cells in his body were whole and healthy and vibrant and working and functioning just as he would hope. And something swept over him in that moment. And he who had never been into a unity or metaphysical church at all, he happened to have his mother's makeup bag still with him as part of the possessions that he'd inherited from his mom. And he took out her eyeliner and he wrote a message on his mirror. And again, I want you to know he'd never heard of Myrtle Fillmore or Unity, but this is what he wrote on his mirror that day. He wrote, "As a child of the Most High, it is natural for me to enjoy health and well-being." Now, some of you who've studied Unity know that Myrtle Fillmore herself had an affirmation very similar, which was, I'm a child of God and I do not inherit illness. I don't know where it came from for Chaz. It was a 7-second minute, but he wrote it on his mirror and began to change his life. He began to change his thoughts and focus not on the part of him that was not healthy, on the part of him that was vibrant, alive, and whole, and filled with possibilities, which was in truth all of him. Today, in his counseling practice, he has written up on his wall the following words: everything that comes out of your mouth is a story. If you're going to tell a story, you may as well make it a good one. Everything that comes out of your mouth is a story. If you're going to tell a story, you may as well make it a good one. Chaz changed his story. He changed the story that he was telling. And if you saw him today, you would see a person that radiates life and happiness and fulfillment in every way. You can read up more about him in this month's Daily Word. His story is told there as well. So this, I believe, our thoughts are powerful. And this, I believe, we have a choice. We have a choice as to which thoughts we allow to hang out in our minds. On Saturday morning, just yesterday, I went, as I usually do on Saturday mornings, to Starbucks. And as I was leaving, happily with my coffee and a free drink coupon, because it had taken them so long to give me the coffee, but that was okay, you know, I was going to get a free drink. I was listening to the radio, and on came a song that I like, but a song that transported me back to a really difficult time in my life. You know how songs can do that. You hear a song and it reminds you of a particular period in your life. And as I listened to this song, I felt myself sucked into the story of that time. I found myself feeling the sadness and the uncomfortableness, and I was getting swept away. And then I had a 7-second minute. And I said to myself, I can change the channel. And I did. I changed the station. And there was another song. And that song swept me into gratitude. And what I realized was that there was a part of me that kind of wanted to meander for a while in all the unpleasantness of the old story. Now, I've worked on that old story. I've done lots of healing with that old story, and for the most part, I've let it go. But there was a part of me that just was willing to kind of go with the pattern and go with the flow and meander there for a while. Have you ever been there? You know it's going to take you down, but you go anyway. But somehow, I had the wisdom and the strength in that moment to change the channel. And folks, this is a great metaphor for your life, right? A radio station. What radio station are you going to tune into? If you look at it as a metaphor for consciousness, what consciousness will you tune into, right? And here you are today, you are tuning into the unity consciousness. It's why you're here. The unity consciousness, where we say that we're a positive path for spiritual living. We're a positive way to look at the world and look at your life. Doesn't mean that you don't have troubles. Doesn't mean that sometimes you don't need to spend some time doing the healing on the old story. But you have a choice. You always have choice. That's what the Unity Channel will tell you. And so this, I believe, you and I, we have choice. We have choice as to what thoughts we choose to shape our life, because they will. And Chaz is a living example of making that shift, having made that shift. And you know what? Maybe today you're going to have a 7 seconds, minute, a miracle of awakening, of some insight that you just know is true for you. It can happen in an instant. The unity path is not for the faint of heart. It's not. It calls us into personal responsibility for our lives. This, I believe. And this, I believe, also is that we are one. You and I, we are one. There is no separation between us. It looks like we've got a lot of separate bodies in the room. It looks like on a map there are all these separate divisions between countries and continents, but the truth is we are all one. And if you were at World Day of Prayer for the opening ceremonies on Wednesday night, how many of you were there to hear Dr. Larry Dawsey? Yeah, a bunch of you were. I was so excited that so many of you were able to be there. He talked about his new book, which is called One Mind. And what Larry Dawsey has done is to chronicle all of the case studies and examples and research that substantiate the fact that you and I are not separate. That there is one consciousness in this world. There is one mind, one universal divine mind. And guess what? That's where Chaz got his 7-second minute. That's where he got the insight. It came right out of the one divine mind. We may think that we have an original idea, you and I, but what I believe is that it's just out there in consciousness, and anyone can apprehend it. Anyone can grasp that idea. As Dawsey was talking, he started giving some of the examples of research and case studies and so forth. And he's a twin himself. He says there's been lots of research done among twins. How many of you here are twins? Any twins in the room today? Yeah. Okay, so some of you know this. About 70% of twins report uncanny connectedness, simultaneous synchronistic emotions and experiences. And Dr. Dawsey talked about one in particular, a child who was in his home while his twin was across town with a grandparent, I believe it was, and the child at home reached up and burned his hand on the stove, right here on his hand. And immediately a blister began to form. Across town, his twin, in that very same moment, had on the same hand a scar appear shaped like the blister on his twin's hand. How does that happen if we are not all connected in some way? And this is especially true, the case studies show, for people who are deeply emotionally connected. You know what happened this morning? I had this little bag of heart stones in my office. And before we pray in back in my office, we draw one. It's like an angel heart. It'll have a word of some sort on it. And every stone in the bag is different, except over the years I've collected 3 stones that say balance, because over the years people have given me 3 balance stones. There's probably another sermon in that. So everybody had drawn their stones, and then John and Christine Shuley come in, this beloved couple, and they reach into the bag, and they both draw balance. I mean, coincidence? I don't think so, actually. I think they are that in tune and that in harmony with one another. He went on to, Dr. Dossi did, to talk about other research, some that I found really fascinating. This particular research is on social networks and how connected we are. It was done by Nicholas Christakis and James Fowler, who are professors at Harvard and at the University of California in San Diego. They researched and studied 5,000 people, looking at their life habits, looking at their life events over a period of 20 years. And they were able to map happiness as an emotion as it flowed through these 5,000 people. And here's what they found. They found that an individual's happiness could be impacted by a friend of a friend of a friend. A person 3 degrees removed, who the individual didn't even know. What that means is that you might be impacted if a friend of a friend of a friend who you do not even know is happy. That can influence you. Odds are it will, because we're connected. In fact, that same research showed that it's more likely that you'll be influenced by the happiness of this friend of a friend of a friend than if somebody were to give you $5,000 and place that into your bank account. Dr. Dossi said he had lots of volunteers sign up to just verify that particular one. The good news about this research is that sadness doesn't flow as quickly or as easily. Happiness seems to. Now, so what does this say to me? We're all one, right? So your thoughts, your actions, your decisions, your choices are impacting the whole. This one mind, this one consciousness, we are all impacting it all the time, you and I. Now, don't take that on as like a heavy burden. Some of you are here today feeling sad. Some of you are here today with burdens. God bless you. I'm glad that you're here today. You don't have to decide that you cannot hold those emotions. It simply says that we are one and we are connected in ways that go beyond what we can comprehend. And this, I believe, that because we are one, we impact the world. Every choice impacts the world. This, I believe there's only one of us. One person said, the way to talk about oneness is to say, there's only one of us. There's really only one mind, only one being. You know, Jesus talked about the church as a body, you know, as the toe, the finger, the heart, but we're all one body moving together in this world of ours. One consciousness, one mind. This, I believe. There's not time today to go over every belief that I would love to share with you, but there's one more I do want to share. This I believe. God is. This I believe. God is. Whether you can see it, feel it in the moment, God is here. God is always here. Always. Eric Butterworth put it so beautifully in his book, Discover the Power Within You. Our prayer chaplain studied this book this year. He said, God is in you as the ocean is in the wave. There's no possible way in which the wave can be separated from the ocean. And there's no way in which you can be separated from God. Because you are the activity of God in manifestation. There is no place in all the world where you can get any closer to God than where you are right now. There's no place in all the world where you can get any closer to God than you are right now. God is. I was speaking with a friend recently about a really difficult time in his life. And I asked him, I said, how did you get through that time? And he said, I had to grow a bigger God. I had to find a bigger God. Have you ever been in that place in your life? Maybe some of you even today are facing something and you need a bigger consciousness of God in order to meet it with faith. One of my favorite prayers is, God is bigger than. What are you facing today? God is bigger than the diagnosis. God is bigger than the hurt. God is bigger than the mistake or the perceived failure. God is bigger than all of that. I've needed to grow a bigger God in my life. I needed to grow a bigger God when my marriage had challenges. I needed to grow a bigger God when my daughter was deeply troubled. I've needed to grow a bigger God over the past few months. Clearly guided as I am, it has not been a rosy path every day to say goodbye. Saying goodbye is not easy for any of us. But there is no limit to God. God is infinite. And sometimes it's not that God gets bigger, it's that you or I make a decision to grow our awareness of God and let God be God in the midst of the circumstance that we're facing. So this, I believe, God is, no matter where you are, no matter how desolate it might feel for you. And here's the other thing that my good friend said. He said, and even in those times when I couldn't see or feel God, I continued my spiritual practice anyway. And that's the key for you. Continuing your spiritual practice, continuing to pray even when you don't hear anything in response, continuing to meditate even when you're not having any 7-second minutes and the insights don't seem to be there. Continuing in the practice, because that's how you grow your awareness of God. God doesn't change, but your awareness of God expands, and then you're able to contain and move forward into whatever it is that you might be facing. You know, Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. To find it in your heart to love God. So this I believe, our thoughts make a difference. This I believe, that we have choice in every moment. This I believe that we are one, and this I believe that God is. And I'd like to close with a story that Alan Cohen tells in his book, which is called A Deep Breath of Life. And he tells about a man who loved fish aquariums. And this man went to the fish aquarium store, and he was really captivated by this small shark that was in one of the aquariums. And so he spoke to the salesperson and said, how big will this shark get? And the salesperson replied, it depends on the size of your aquarium. Keep him in this little one, and he'll stay 7 inches. Give him an entire ocean, and he'll get big enough to eat you. Sharks and goldfish will grow in proportion to the size of the environment offered to them. Sharks and goldfish will grow in proportion to the size of the environment offered them. And Cohen goes on to write, and so will thoughts. Give your positive or negative thoughts some space and food, and they will shape your life. Which thoughts do you decide to feed? Which beliefs do you decide to entertain? You see, your beliefs, our beliefs, they shape the aquarium in which we live. Sometimes we need to expand our beliefs so that we can grow into all that we are created to be. And so this I believe, there is an ocean of possibility for you. As you get clear on your thoughts, as you get clear on your beliefs, there is no limit to who and what you can be. This I believe. God bless you.